Hey, as a business owner, are you sick and tired of asking yourself, what do I need to do to survive? What ads should I post? How do I get to the next level, become more profitable? But you don't know the answers. You're trapped on a vicious cycle because the question you should be asking is not what do I do and what do I need to do, but who do I need to connect with? Well, welcome to the Connect, Share, Prosper show. I'm a husband and father of 5, co-founder and president of Master Networks, the author of the 5+1 book. And listen, stats show that 8 out of 10 businesses fail, and that's unacceptable. So how do you not become a stat? First, understand no successful business owner has done it alone. So I want you to hear from successful entrepreneurs as they share their success strategies that will help you catapult your profits. Build your tribe to connect, share, and prosper in your business. You're only one relationship away from changing your future, and that's what this podcast is: Connect, Share, and Prosper. So welcome to the show today. Again, I want to welcome you to the relaunch of Connect, Share, and Prosper. I'm your host, and I am super excited. Thank you for joining me today. First, I want to start out with why am I relaunching the podcast? And there's multiple reasons I'm relaunching the podcast and coming here on this podcast, live on Facebook and other places. So what I really wanted to do is I stepped back from looking at the podcasts that have been running. It's been a great experience. Loved working with Chris on that. And it's been just like he helped me get my feet wet on this. And the reason I wanted to is I want to add more value, right? I want to add more value to you in interviewing top business leaders around the country that they can share their successes, not just mine, not just the mistakes that I've made, but that from other people. And I want to share that with you. So I want to share more of who I am with you, right? I want to be more vulnerable with you and share some of those things. So that's why you should check out this podcast on a weekly basis. We'll be going noon Central every Monday on this podcast. So thank you for joining us. And listen, why you should listen. Today, this is the relaunch. And in subsequent episodes, we're going to have more people who are successful business owners coming to you to share their stories. And it's going to be a powerful thing, right? If we're talking about connecting and sharing, that's the key. We got to bring other people to connect and share, and so that we can all prosper together. That's the whole key, okay? So the point of this, the first segment here I want to share with you is really about building your tribe and connecting with others, right? And so if you think about it, everything starts with relationships. You've heard me say that many times if you've been a part of anything I've done in the past. It's about connecting with others and building relationships, right? The first relationship, if I look at everything, like everything of significance that I have in my life is from relationships. And the first relationship for me was that of my beautiful wife. And we met in college back in 1999, a long time ago. And actually the first time we met was in 1997. And we started dating seriously in 1999. And when we got married in the year 2000. So one of the two smartest things I did was get married to my wife and then do it in the year 2000. So I always know how many years we've been married, right? So it's easy to do the math. Just have to know what year it is. And but it was a really, really smart decision. You know, at that time, we got married. My wife was in school to be a nurse. I was in school, but I didn't know what I wanted to do, right? That's a common story for a lot of us as entrepreneurs. We were unemployable and we hated school, so we became entrepreneurs. My wife was clear, though, in her path and what she wanted to do. She wanted to be a nurse. And so she was clear about what she wanted to do in being a nurse. And for me, I just wasn't clear, right? I wasn't clear on what I wanted to do. And so that made it a challenge. Right? Because I wasn't sure what I wanted to do. But as we went down that path, I realized that I had the skill. I had the skill of selling, and I had the skill and the ability to help others. And one night, we were sitting at my in-laws' dining room table, again, as a newly married couple, having dinner, and they had just built this house about a year previous, and they were talking to me about it and some of the frustrations of their real estate agent. And I kind of had this idea. I was like, wait, hold on a second. This guy did such a bad job, according to them, and made that kind of money. I thought I could do that. I could do better than that and make that kind of money. By the way, not a great way to start a business, but that was how I did. And I started my own real estate business, built my own company, grew that over years, right? Built that up. 70, 80 real estate agents, had great partners, great team, Things were rocking. And then for those of you who are in business back 2008, 2009, you kind of remember that the crash, right? The real estate crash that affected so much. We weren't short of that as well. So that hit us hard, right? And I remember one day getting ready to lead a team meeting as I was leading this office that we'd built. And some of the partners came in and said, look, things are hard right now. And I think it's going to be times that we maybe need to shut the doors. And I remember thinking, there's no way we can shut the doors. Like, we got all these people sitting in this room who are counting on us. And I remember having the foresight of thinking, like, we could fix this. And what would it look like when we fix this? And also having that foresight to look back on this day and realize that this was a pivotal moment for me. If you guys can relate to that, hit some likes and stars and hearts. Like, look, you can relate to a day where, like, this is a pivotal decision. It's not easy, but you know that whatever you decide at that moment is going to change the rest. It was that day, and I decided that we would fix it. We would work hard. We would do whatever we needed to talk to people we had loans out with, and whatever we needed to do, our people that we needed to pay expenses to, etc. And so we started on that journey. We just we needed to do it. And during that time, as we got things back on our feet, some of my partners came to me and said, look, we think we got somebody else that can take this in a different direction. So even though I'd maybe turned some things around, they just said, we got somebody that we need to, take it in a different direction. At that moment, I was devastated because I'd put everything I had into that and trying to keep things afloat and really turned it around. And they just, as partners, felt like they wanted somebody else to now take it to a different level. And again, at that moment, I was just super bummed about it, but I realized that just opened the door for all these other things that I was able to do. And it was at that time that the idea for Master Networks really came about, because if I had been focused on still building that real estate thing that we were doing, I wouldn't have been open to building Master Networks. So if you have a time in your life where maybe something doesn't come about the way you want, or it maybe falls apart or doesn't work, understand that that's just getting you set up for the next opportunity. And I didn't realize it completely at the time, but I was open to making those things happen. And so as we started on this journey of Master Networks, one of the key things I did, and this is what I really want you to think about who in your life, right? This relationship piece is that I reached out to people. I started realizing, look, if I'm going to build something big and make an impact, I got to reach out to mentors and coaches and people I admire who have been down this path, right? So I want you to think about who in your life right now has been where you want to be that you should be reaching out to. And I made a list of 10 people. These were people that I knew of. I didn't know any of them personally. I didn't have relationships with any of them at this point. And I just realized that I wanted to connect with them. And so I reached out and I sent emails. And the interesting thing is, one of those people in my life who I reached out to a few months later sent me an email kind of out of the blue. I kind of gave up. Everybody I reached out to, no one was replying. And so I sent this email out, and the gentleman replied and said, hey, I'd love to chat with you. And he said, and this is brilliant. He said, I'll give you 15 minutes. And that 15-minute phone call turned into 30, that turned into 45. And at every moment, he just kept going longer. I kept thinking at any time he's going to say, I got to go. But as long as he wasn't, I was going to keep taking that time and sharing our vision. And he kept asking questions. And then he said this. He said, Chaz, I love what you're doing, and it's really aligned with what I'm doing. And my son, just by chance, happens to live in Minnesota where you're at, where we started Master Networks. And I'll be there in a couple weeks, and I'd love to visit with you. And I thought, awesome. That's great. Let's do it. And so that turned into a 2-day event. Now, if you can envision, we practically lived because we were at work all the time. We were in this office building that was the best we could do at the time, but it wasn't like this beautiful office we're in now. Some of my team at those early days, their desk was like a foot from the bathroom, right? So they had to sit right next to the bathroom in this small little space. It was so bootstrapped at the beginning that we didn't have blinds on the windows. And so here's this mentor of mine, this person I admire, who drove all the way across or flew across the country, drove to the office, and we're sitting in the office on these two little chairs that just are probably worth $20 each. I mean, they're just these pitiful little chairs. And we're having to move down the space of the office because the sun is glaring through and we're trying to outpace the sun. throughout this office. I mean, it was humiliating. Well, that's what I thought was the most humiliating part of that day, but it really wasn't. During that day, my wife was calling me. She texted, she called, she texted, she called in about a period of 30 seconds. And now, my wife wouldn't, she's not going to do that if she knows I got these appointments. She knew what we were in the middle of that day. And as I mentioned at the top of the show, we got married in the year 2000. We have 5 amazing children. But at that day, she was calling me to say, pick up the phone. I need to talk to you. And so I excused myself. I walked outside. I grabbed my phone. I said, sweetie, what's going on? She said, listen, I'm at the grocery store right now. All the food is up on the table and the card won't work. And I'm like, okay, give me a second. Let me, I could hear that pain in her voice of humiliation. There's people behind her and the card's not working. She tried a second card, a third card. None of them are working. And, I'm like, give me a second. I get off the phone. I log into our bank account online and it says there's $27 in the account. And I'll never forget. I remember staring at that number, $27 in the bank account. And, think about the dichotomy of this, the two positions, the polar ends of this. In one room behind me in the office, I've got this brilliant business mind, mentor, friend now, but we're building this relationship. Somebody who's giving me all this direction on how to grow this business, sitting in the other room. And I'm out in the parking lot outside on the phone with the other most significant relationship in my life. And I have to call her back and tell her we have $27 in our bank account. And so I reach out to her and I call back and I said, sweetie, I'm sorry, but we have $27 right now. Get whatever you can that gets us through today for $27. I don't know. It's probably at that stage we had 3 in diapers. So it's probably just diapers for the 3. But she did amazing, got enough things for the day for $27. I said, I don't know, get us through today. I'll figure out tomorrow. If you've ever been in that place, you know how painful that is to be at a place where, especially, and I don't want to undermine anything else, but especially as a husband and as a father trying to do everything I could to provide, and I've got $27 in my bank account, not knowing where I'm going to get money for tomorrow. And, as I look at entrepreneurs today, I totally respect that position, and I wish that was the last day that ever happened, but it happened several times over the next few months. But what I realize is how hard it is to grow a business, right? Heavy is the head that wears the crown. And it's lonely in business. And that was a lonely moment. It was a really lonely moment. And I then had to sort of let that go at the moment, walk right back in and have this powerful business discussion. Listen, here's what I want you to know. If you've ever had that moment where you're not sure how you get to the next day in business, I can relate. I can totally relate. That day where I'm sitting there on the phone with my wife saying we have $27 in the bank account, we have 5 kids, and we're trying to put food on the table, and I've got my business mentor in the office, and I have to sort of let that discussion go to walk in and have the other discussion about how do we grow this business and how do we make things happen. That's a tough deal. But those moments are temporary. As painful and as heavy as they are, they're temporary. And what I had to understand is 2 things. I could be a victim in that moment of where we were. I could say, here's all the things that happened to us. Here's all the things that happened to us. Or I could say, look, we're there because of the decisions we've made, good or bad. That's where we are because of what we've done. And it's time to fix it. And the beautiful part is I had the person, right? The who. That's always the answer, is the who. I had the who sitting in the room that was there to give me the answers. And too many times, I think in my life, I've asked for help and then the help's sitting right in front of me and miss it, right? Or the help's right around me and I miss it. I have the who sitting right in the room that says, and here's, again, if I can just paint this picture for you. I've got $27 in my bank account. We're trying to launch regions across the country. We've been in business about 2.5 years. And we're trying to launch regions across the country. And my goodness, we're trying to give them away. we had somebody in Michigan and Utah and Northern California. I don't know. We had 5 or 6 across the country that we just said, look, if you want to build a Master Network chapter, you can have a region. We kind of just gave it to them. And now I've got $27 in my bank account, and I'm sitting across from this brilliant business mind who says, Chaz, you need to go sell these regions. And I'm like, man, we can hardly give these away. He said, that's the problem. You're not going to give them away. There's no value if you're giving them away, right? How many of you can relate to that? You give too much away in your business, right? You give way too much away constantly because, by the way, you love what you do it for free, so you do it for free. That's not the point of a business. You don't serve people well by giving it to them for free. So I said, we're not, right? Make a comment if you relate to that. My goodness, if you can relate to giving away your services for free, say that's me. If you're listening to this, if you're driving in your car, don't take your hands off the wheel, but mentally raise your hand and say, yeah, that's me, and I'm going to stop doing that. So he said to me, you're going to sell these for, let's say, $10,000. And I'm like, $10,000? My goodness, we have proved nothing at this point other than a few chapters. You're going to sell it for $10,000. And he said, yeah, and I'm going to help you because I got some people I think that would be interested in this. Now, he reached out to a few people and said, hey, I've got this great opportunity I want to tell you about, and set up some phone calls. And I talked through Master Networks and I talked about the regional opportunity. And then that magic question came and they said, well, how much is it to buy the region? And if any of you have ever got to that point where you're like ready to do your sell, like your ask, and all of a sudden your body changes, like you feel it in your gut change because you got to ask. That was the moment. That was what I had. I had that ask moment and it just, stop. And I know it didn't come out right. I know it didn't come out with power, but I was like, it's $10,000 for the region. And then I did everything I could to just zip it, not say another word, shut my mouth, and just listen. And they're like, oh, 10,000. Yeah, that's great. And I'm like, oh my gosh. And I remember the second call I had, I called up my business mentor, the same one, and I said, okay, I've done a lot of selling. I think I'm pretty good at it. How do I ask somebody for $10,000 to buy this region? Like, there's got to be a good sales script. There's got to be this amazing thing that I can, lead them through this process. And you're kind of this wizard. Give me some feedback on this. And he said, okay, you ready? I said, I'm ready. I got my pen ready. I'm ready to hear this magic, this wisdom. And he said, okay, here's what you're going to say. So the region's $10,000. Do you want to write a check or do you want to put that on American Express or a Visa? And I was like, that's it? He's like, that's it. You just ask. And I was like, well, first of all, at that moment in my life of having $27, I was like, somebody could put $10,000 on a credit card? Like, it just wasn't my reality at that point. And sometimes we put our reality on the potential prospect, right? And so now, I sell one, I sell two. And a lot of us, we just need that momentum. We need that belief in one thing that we do that could turn into the rest, right? I just needed the belief that I thought if one person will buy a region for $10,000, surely I could sell more. And so that first, second, third, what's interesting is we sold 3 regions in a matter of, I think, 10 to 14 days. The first person said yes. The next day, another person said yes. And then about a week later, we sold another one. And so now we had 3 regions with 3 regional owners at $10,000, right? And then years later, a little while later, we decided to go out and say, let's go to 20 and 25. And now we sell regions between $50,000 and $100,000 today because we've proven that value, right? But at those early stages, we had to create the belief. It wasn't the belief of them. We had to have the belief. And what I really look back in that moment and realize the power of all of it was the relationship, the who, right? So many of us, we go through this time period and we go through this thing where we're along this path and our vision's way up here, right? You're on this path and your vision's way up here, and all of a sudden you hit a wall, and that wall cuts us off. And so what happens when we hit that wall is we go, well, we must not be doing it right. Or we must need to change this or change that. And we start to get really strategic and we get all these things going on. Like, let's get really creative. Let's reinvent everything. I've been so guilty of that. So guilty of that. But the reality is the answer is always who. Who knows how to do that? Who knows how to accomplish that? Who's already done that? Who do I need to reach out to that could change everything for me? Who's that one relationship that I'm away from that could change the future and break through that wall for me? And at that moment for me, it was this business mentor, my friend Dave, who has been part of Master Networks. It was at that moment. And again, I don't think he knew till just recently that I'd had that other phone call on the same day that he was there. Okay. I mean, he was dialed in, he was focused. And that relationship led to multiple relationships. And now I understand this power of this relationship so much that I put this event together called Connect. We had the vision for it years ago, and we finally made that happen. This will be our 4th Connect, where we bring people together from around the country to share and be vulnerable. And that's the whole point of this podcast. And that's the whole point of Connect, that we can share and be vulnerable, right? I think that this importance of relationships for everybody is to understand this, is that people need connection, right? Look at anything that happens in a social setting. They're looking to be connected. They're looking for that belonging. And I want you to know that you belong to Master Networks. You belong here, right? And I always realize that no matter how high of a success that I hit was always in proportion to the number of people that I had in my circle and in my tribe and that I was connected with, right? And so here's what I want for you. I want you to be able to build a tribe that's so powerful that it insulates you from the challenges that come to a certain extent. They're always going to be there. You're always going to have hardships. You're always going to have things that need to happen. You're going to need feedback. You're going to need ideas from people. That can, catapult you over that wall or bust you right through that wall. It's the who. And so what I want for you, and that's the whole purpose of this podcast, the purpose of Master Networks, and the purpose of Connect, is to provide a platform for each of you to go build that tribe. You know what's fascinating to me? I just spent a week in Nashville at a conference because I invest, right? I invest in myself. I invest in people. It's fascinating to me that everyone wants to grow their business, and yet they're so unwilling to invest in themselves. And I was for years. Like, I can't afford $100 ticket to an event or $300. Now I spend. This is what I look back, it blows me away. I shared this with my wife. Right now I pay between all the coaches and mentors in my life, not events, just the coaches and mentors in my life. And this is not a brag. Please don't, this isn't like, oh, how much money do you spend versus how much do I spend? That's not it. I spend $7,500 a month right now, minimum, for coaching and mentoring. Now, what's interesting to me is I wish I'd have done that a lot sooner. Right now, why? You have the money. No, I never had the money when I started investing. It's not like, well, I had the money and then I started investing in people. No, I always invested ahead of it, and I had a little faith to do that. Okay, but here's the thing. I go back and I look in 2000 when my wife and I were married. I went back just because I was curious. I looked at our first year's tax return. Our first year tax return was just under $7,500. I don't even know how we survived that first year, but it was just under $7,500. And I'm spending more than that a month in coaching and mentoring with people who are qualified to help me, right? And so what I want for you, I'm sorry, not from you at all. I want for you is the ability to connect with others and build this tribe. So as these challenges come up, you've supported yourself. So I already know what sometimes goes through your mind, right? So what happens is, and we've got some people on this Facebook Live listening to this who are masters of this. That's why they're master networkers. So master networkers, here's the thing that I want for you, right? And I know what you might be thinking. The problem is that networking takes too long, right? It takes too much time, too much money. It's too complicated to do. It's not. It's easy. It's easy to do, and therefore most people don't do it. But it's sort of like this easy, hard paradox, right? If it's too easy, then it's hard long term. It's harder to build your tribe. But the more effort you put in, the harder it is up front, the easier it is over time. And so what I want you to understand is that it's hard to find the right people, but it's easy. It's easy to go out and network, but it can be hard to find the right people, especially if you're not doing this consistently on a daily basis. Okay? Understand this. People are the answer, right? Every business has people, right? Every one of your customers are people. Every one of your employees are people. So getting really good at understanding how to deal with people and how to work with people is the key. So let me help you get started and build your tribe today. I'm going to give you a couple ways to do that. So if you're listening somewhere, you can take notes, get a couple of ideas on this. I want you to listen to how you can start to build your tribe today, right? No-brainer. The first one is to join something like Master Networks with us. Come be a Master Networker. Get on a platform like this where you can connect with people across the country, of course, right? But here's beyond that. So for those of you who are the master networkers who are part of this tribe already, if you're not, we welcome you to be a part of it. We want you to be part of it because you belong with us. We're master networks. We are one tribe across the country, okay? But join master networks. Then get on a system of doing this. We need to look at a system where you can do 3 face-to-face meetings minimum a week. We have some people who are doing 10 or 12. I get that. But start with 3. And now here's the easiest way to do this, okay? It's something Michael Mayer talks about in his book, 7 Levels of Communication. We call it a face-to-face stack. And what you do is you pick a day, like let's say it's Fridays, and you stack 3 back to back to back. And the whole point of this is so that, number one, you leverage time, because that was what's going through your mind. Like, there's not enough time to do this. These take so long to build these relationships. It really doesn't, right? You build this stack. So let's say you got a 9, 10, and 11. You meet that person at 9 o'clock. You have a face-to-face with the bond method, which I'll talk about in a second. Then the 10 o'clock shows up and you introduce the 2 people, your 9 o'clock and your 10 o'clock. You introduce them together. They may not even know each other. Now you become this like legendary networker because you've introduced these 2 people. They both see you as valuable, and especially if you're strategic about the way you do this. Man, I talk fast, don't I? I'm excited for you on this. Okay, so you do your face-to-face stack. You get those set up. Then you do your 9, your 10, your 11. You introduce everybody to each other along the way. As soon as you leave, you send thank you cards. You send some follow-up for the next time you get to meet with them. But the key is while you're there, you do the bond method. And so what is the bond method? Quickly, the bond method, and I'll go in depth on future podcast episodes. But the overview is this. B, it's an acronym. B, build on a common interest. O, occupation exploration, needs discovery, and develop opportunities. The build on a common interest, this is the key. It's you asking questions. It's not you talking about you. It's you asking questions, getting to know them so you can build on something you have in common. Everywhere I go, I meet people who, and I get the opportunity, which some of them I'm going to bring to you on these podcasts. I'm going to bring you some celebrity, successful business people. And I hear this common thing all the time. They'll say, Chaz, I feel like I know you. I feel like we instantly connected. You know what the key to that is build on a common interest. I can find something in common with them instantly and I build on that. I drive deep on that. I find what we have in common. It can be the simplest things. It could be a connection of somebody we know. It could have been a state we grew up in. And I ask them and I dig on that to build on that common interest, okay? That's the key for building the connections, right, is building on that common interest. Now, the last thing I'll say in this, so right, you're going to join Master Networks, you're going to do 3 face-to-faces, you're going to do a face-to-face stack, and you're going to use the bond method during this process. But the last key is have fun while you're doing this. Have a blast at this. Don't make this a chore. You're meeting people. People are interesting, they're fun, they have exciting stories, and if you dig that out, think about how amazing and fulfilling that life is for you, because the highest level is for you to be able to contribute, and you can do that in those networking settings, right? So, if you got something out of this and you're on the live, go ahead and like this. Comment on what you got out of this so far. What's the aha moment you had for you? If you're on listening to this recording later, what I'd like you to do is put a comment either in the YouTube section or wherever it is that you're watching or listening to this about what you got out of this today. Something you're going to go do right away to improve building your tribe and your network, okay? Put something in the comments and do that. Now, if this is just the beginning of what we're going to do with Connect, Share, Prosper. And I'm going to bring some people to you. I have some amazing people lined up to come to you where they're going to share their successes and how they're building their tribes. What I found is there's some common themes with people and how they're building tribes. I mean, some of these people have millions of followers, and it's their ability to connect with others and their systematic approach to this that like has blown my mind. And I want to put those people in front of you, right? So this is just the beginning of what you're going to get with the Connect, Share, Prosper podcast. Because here's the thing. You deserve everything that you want and desire. And the reality is that there's somebody out there right now that can connect you to that, right? There's somebody out there that can connect you to what you're looking to accomplish. How fast are you going to find them? And I hear all the time, Chaz, it's about the quality. You're right, it is about the quality. But you find the quality in the quantity of people. Too much, I think we get into the judgment of who should be in your circle and who shouldn't be. Right now, just invite people in, and you can sort that out a little bit later, but start inviting people, expand your network, right? This is the part that is important for each of us, right? So here's the thing I want you to do. If you liked what you saw today, please share this podcast. Give me comments, give me feedbacks. If there's someone you'd like me to interview on this show, please let me know. You can send me an email, reach out to me on this comment below. Hey, this is somebody I'd love to have on the podcast. Remember, you're only one relationship away from changing your future, and that starts today. Go invite somebody to join your tribe, join your circle. I'm so grateful you are part of this tribe and this circle, being a master networker to help change the entrepreneurial landscape, where we are building a movement and leading a movement that builds legacy beyond the business. My friends, thank you for being a part of that. Thank you for watching today. Be well, and we will talk soon.